Hello, I'm seeking advice because I made a serious mistake. Life seemed perfect until one pivotal trip. My husband, 38 male, and I, 34 female, had been together for 10 years, navigating both good times and bad with open communication and trust. However, 6 months ago, everything took an unexpected turn during my work assignment away from home. During that month-long trip, I found myself caught up in an affair with one of my colleagues. It was a mistake, driven by feelings of insecurity and doubt about my husband's loyalty. Our relationship had seen better days, and I allowed my emotions to cloud my judgment. I engaged in activities with my coworker that I had never even considered with my husband. Another aspect of my wrongdoing that I deeply regret is that we frequented bars and even stayed in various hotels and motels when our emotions ran high and desires took over. It felt like a return to college days, wild and exciting in a way that hadn't been part of my marriage. It was heartbreaking to return home, but we did, to our respective partners. My husband returned to his wife and newborn. After coming back from the trip, I had intentions of incorporating some of the things I learned during that time into our bedroom to spice things up. But I held back so my husband wouldn't become suspicious. A few days ago, I received shocking news during a routine doctor's visit. I tested positive for HPV. This revelation hit me hard, and I'm overwhelmed with regret and anxiety. I haven't informed my husband about the diagnosis yet, because doing so would inevitably mean confessing to the affair. I'm torn between the desire to be honest and the fear of causing him even more pain. I genuinely want to make amends, to mend the damage I've caused and rebuild our trust. I acknowledge that our relationship isn't flawless, but I believe in our love and the potential to strengthen it. The weight of guilt is heavy on my heart. While I understand he may not share the same optimism about our relationship, I want to support him in every way if it comes to that point. I hope he confides in his best friend for support, as I know they have a special bond. Financially, we're stable, and I'm thankful for that. Money has never been a concern for either of us. We both have successful careers, no children, and 2 beloved dogs. However, we own a house in a different state that we're renting out, and we're currently renting a house in our current location. My husband had plans to move with me when I relocate due to my assignment in a few months, but now that plan feels uncertain. I'm filled with regret and worry about breaking the news to him. I'm seeking advice on how to handle this delicate situation and save our marriage. I'm deeply concerned that my husband might also be at risk of HPV, and his well-being is a top priority for me. My hope is that we can summon the strength to heal and rediscover the love that initially brought us together. The path ahead is intimidating, but I'm ready to approach it step by step, seeking guidance and supporting each other during this difficult period. I need to find the courage to provide you all with an update, as my life has taken an unexpected and devastating turn. I'm committed to being honest about the mistakes I've made and the consequences I'm facing. After much reflection, I made the difficult decision to confess my HPV diagnosis to my husband. I knew it was the right thing to do, but I couldn't have predicted the heartbreak that would follow. When I shared the news of the STD with my husband, he began asking for more details, and eventually the truth about the affair emerged. Witnessing the pain in his eyes and the shattered expression on his face was excruciating. He couldn't comprehend how I could betray him in such a manner. He wanted more information, and I provided some, but I held back because I didn't want to add to his suffering or further upset him. Another person was involved in this situation, my colleague, and I believe it's not my place to reveal sensitive information about him. Consequently, my husband, overwhelmed by anger and hurt, has left our home, stating that he needs space and time to process everything. I'm a complete wreck. Guilt and remorse are consuming me. I deeply regret my actions and wish I could reverse time. I understand that I've caused immense pain to the person I care about the most, and it pains me to know that I've shattered his trust. Right now, I'm lost and shattered, unsure of how to mend what's broken. Harming him was never my intention, yet I ended up doing the exact opposite. It feels like I've destroyed everything we've built together over the past 10 years, and I'm clueless about how to repair it. The house feels empty without him, and I'm haunted by memories of happier times together. I wish I could go back in time and make different choices, but I can't alter the past. I'm sharing this update not to seek sympathy, but as a cautionary tale for anyone else considering betraying their partner. The pain and consequences of being unfaithful are enormous, and it's a decision I deeply regret. I'm uncertain about what the future holds for us. For now, I'll respect his need for space. I hope he can heal quickly and we can have an honest conversation. I want to apologize to him and make him understand how truly sorry I am while addressing the underlying issues that led to this mistake. I haven't contacted my family or in-laws yet, and I hope it doesn't come to that. I don't want outsiders involved in our marital issues. I've kept everything private, and I hope he does the same. I want to express my gratitude to everyone who provided advice and support in my previous post. I wish I had heeded the advice earlier, but my emotions got the better of me. Edit. My husband is a devout Christian, and I know he opposes divorce, as do his parents. They have a till death do us part, even if my spouse's abusive mindset. I'm not particularly concerned about divorce, but I fear that our relationship may never be the same again. I don't want him to lose all respect for me. So things have taken quite a dramatic turn since my last update, and I wanted to share what's been unfolding. After I confessed about my HPV diagnosis and the affair revelation, my husband basically left. He just walked out of our home, stating that he needed some time to process everything. Honestly, I can't blame him. I messed up big time. But here's the surprising part. It turns out my husband is contemplating a divorce. Yeah, I know, it's quite unexpected, right? He's deeply committed to his Christian faith, and divorce goes against his strong beliefs. Even his parents, who are also devoutly religious, appear to be okay with the idea. Honestly, it's really catching me off guard. I never thought it would come to this. I was so certain that divorce was off the table. Even if my husband wanted a divorce, I never imagined his parents would support it. They genuinely care about me, and I'm their favorite daughter-in-law, so I can't quite grasp this new development. I tried to reach out to him to have a conversation and maybe work things out, but his parents intervened like some kind of superheroes and blocked any communication between us. They are fully in favor of ending the marriage, and I find myself sidelined, unable to explain myself adequately. My husband is entirely out of reach, and even if something were to happen to me, he wouldn't know because we're that disconnected now. To make matters even more chaotic, my parents unexpectedly showed up. You know that saying about too many people trying to manage things? Well, let's just say it got noisy and heated pretty quickly. Initially, they attempted to come inside, but I didn't allow it, so they started confronting me on my patio. They were laying the blame on me and hurling insults, calling me reckless and various other names for losing such a great man because I sought a brief fling. I attempted to persuade them to come inside to avoid airing our drama to the neighbors, but they refused. This family turmoil is further complicating an already difficult situation. I'm feeling incredibly lost at the moment. I never wanted any of this to occur, and I deeply regret that my actions have led us into this mess. I'm trying to come to terms with the possibility of losing the man I thought I'd spend my life with. To everyone who provided advice and support last time, seriously, thank you. Your insights made me realize the importance of taking responsibility for my mistakes and attempting to make amends. This entire situation feels like a roller coaster, and I'm just striving to get back on track. It's messy and uncertain, but I'm not giving up just yet. If you ever find yourself in a situation like mine, please learn from my errors. Honesty and open communication are the foundations of any relationship, and the pain caused by betrayal is not worth any fleeting pleasure. Edit. I don't know if my husband has HPV or not. We weren't very sexually active after I returned, and he insisted on using a protection every time. I'm sorry, but your regret isn't enough. You've completely destroyed his trust and betrayed him in the most terrible way possible. Please don't anticipate sympathy from anyone here. You've created this situation, and now you have to deal with it. I'm sorry, but I can't muster any sympathy for you. You cheated on your husband, plain and simple. You decided to betray his trust and break your marriage vows. Now that he's rightfully hurt and angry, are you seeking validation for your remorse? You're the one who messed up, and your husband has every reason to be upset. Your affair wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate choice you made. Your guilt is the consequence of your own actions catching up with you. If you genuinely want to make amends, begin by respecting his need for space and giving him the time to heal. Your relationship may never be the same, and that's the result of your decisions. Your actions carry more weight than your words. You're upset because your husband discovered your betrayal, not because you genuinely feel remorseful about what you did. You've made a massive mistake, and now you're facing the repercussions. Your marriage may never recover, and that's your responsibility. Don't expect sympathy from anyone for your poor choices. All right, that was a fun story. Now let's move on to another exciting one. Stay tuned and let's dive in. My husband and I were together for about 9 years, and we've been married for 2. Before we began our relationship, I had only been in one previous one. Our relationship was generally happy, except for our bed life. He consistently had a much lower desire for closeness than I did. While I was open to being close with him more than once a day if he wanted to, he preferred it only once a week. Additionally, he preferred being intimate only in the dark and in the middle of the night. This left me feeling unsatisfied most of the time, and I found myself self-pleasing multiple times a day. However, aside from our differences, he was my closest friend in the world. We were incredibly similar in almost every aspect of our lives, except when it came to physical intimacy. If there's such a thing as soulmates, he was probably mine in every way except this one. Despite these disparities in our physical relationship, our emotional and intellectual connection was so strong that I couldn't help but love him from the moment we met. We both struggled with depression and ADHD, shared the same major in college, and held the same core values. Unfortunately, some people made hurtful comments, suggesting that we didn't seem like a suitable couple because they thought I was too pretty for him. I knew those comments bothered him emotionally. He was a handsome, well-built man with a broad build, sporting a beard. I found him incredibly physically appealing, and I made sure to express this to him frequently. Over the years, I made several attempts to discuss my physical needs with him, approaching the topic with love and empathy from various angles. My goal was to respect his desires just as I wanted him to respect mine. I understood that he wasn't obligated to engage in intimate activities with me unless he genuinely wanted to. Nevertheless, I often couldn't initiate any physical intimacy with him because it would elicit a negative reaction, and he would wave me away. Although he had every right to do this, it still hurt my feelings. Whenever I mentioned feeling unsatisfied, it would sometimes lead him to spiral into self-loathing, feeling unable to please me, or making it clear he didn't want to discuss it. In our attempts to communicate lovingly about our intimate desires, there were moments when I felt so thoroughly rejected by him that I lost interest in having closeness with him. The most effective approach was when I straightforwardly stated, "I would like to be close to you." And he would respond with, "I'll consider that," and perhaps initiate physical contact in the middle of the night a day or 2 later. This leads me to my next point. I found myself developing crushes on many of our close male friends, especially those we had known for 5, 10 years. I never cheated on my husband, but I couldn't stop these intrusive thoughts about it. The idea of divorcing him wasn't something I wanted. Instead, what I desired was to have a consensual, intimate relationship with our friends, driven by the intense desires I felt when I was around them. Recently, I found myself strongly attracted to some of our single male friends. They paid attention to me and cared about us, even if they weren't as physically attractive as my husband. I caught myself daydreaming about engaging in intimate acts with them at social gatherings. To be honest, it was quite embarrassing. I understood that these thoughts were unhealthy, but I felt compelled to explore them. At times, I felt like I had invested all my intense female intimate energy in a man who, while gorgeous and wonderful, couldn't fully appreciate it. There were moments when I simply wanted to share my body with my closest friends and still maintain our friendships afterward. I knew this might sound incredibly selfish. I briefly touched on this topic with my husband, but he tended to avoid engaging in serious discussions about it. He often replied with something like, "I'll just have closeness with you more." But, unfortunately, he didn't follow through. Strangely, it seemed that the more I gently brought up the subject, the less interested he became in having closeness with me. It was challenging because I wasn't just dealing with these desires in isolation, I was also involuntarily developing feelings for our close friends. It wouldn't have been such a dilemma. I really didn't want to be unfaithful to my husband, but it felt like my body was strongly inclined that way. I sensed that the deep affection I held for these men as friends was overflowing into unwanted sexual longing, and I was uncertain about how to handle it. I had no intention of cutting them out of my life since they were so closely connected to us. Plus, I didn't want to do that. I cared about them deeply. Then on Sunday evening we had some friends over, and one of our mutual friends sat next to me. I can't recall whose foot initiated contact, but we ended up discreetly massaging each other's thighs under the table. I became so aroused that I wished there was no one else in the room. Despite my attraction to our mutual friend, I was determined not to betray my husband. However, he kept sending me flirtatious text messages, and I responded politely. I had this suppressed desire to be intimate with him, but I was frustrated because I couldn't be unfaithful to my husband. Throughout the night, my thoughts wandered into an imaginary realm where couples were allowed to be with other people with their spouse's consent, somewhat like an open relationship arrangement. Then, one evening while in bed, I finally mustered the courage to initiate a serious conversation with my husband about the state of our intimacy and my desires. It was a tough conversation, but I believed it was essential for the health of our relationship. I brought up the idea of having an open relationship, clarifying that it wasn't about seeking emotional connections elsewhere, but rather addressing my physical needs with his awareness and consent. Initially, my husband was surprised and defensive. He found it difficult to comprehend why I couldn't find satisfaction in our relationship alone. The idea of me being with others was hard for him to accept, and he wondered if it meant I loved him any less. It was clear that he was feeling hurt and insecure, worried that he might not be enough for me. In the weeks that followed, we had many heartfelt discussions about the concept of open relationships, exploring both the potential advantages and challenges. He declined, citing concerns that an open relationship would be unbalanced, with me having more opportunities than him. I reassured him that, in that case, I would facilitate opportunities for him to be with other women. This process was emotionally challenging for both of us, involving discussions about boundaries and potential issues that might arise as we considered this journey. While my husband remained hesitant, I had a plan to persuade him. I knew one of his fantasies was to be with 2 women simultaneously, so I searched online for women interested in being with a couple. It took a few tries to find the right woman. On the first night we arranged, my husband had no idea about my surprise plan. When he returned home and entered the bedroom after his shower, he found me and the woman waiting for him. He was initially nervous, but we made him feel comfortable. I fumed out to be an aeriorable experience for all of us and my hus. Appreciated it too. After the lady left, he realized the importance of my happiness and understood that completely suppressing my desires could lead to resentment and strain our relationship. Gradually, he became more open to the idea of an open relationship. This transformation didn't happen overnight. It involved my husband being with multiple women on different occasions. Eventually, he reached a point where he felt secure enough to agree to me being with another man. This decision came after we had engaged in threesomes with 3 different women. He told me that when I eventually slept with other men, he preferred not to know any details about them. We established certain boundaries, like the requirement to use protection, and we both had the freedom to end it if we chose to. We made it clear that our arrangement was strictly physical with no room for emotional connections. Additionally, my husband was adamant that we should not involve anyone we knew personally. Although I had reservations about this, I decided not to bring it up, hoping he might change his stance. It didn't take long for me to begin a physical relationship with the mutual friend I had always been attracted to. We had been exchanging flirtatious text messages ever since our playful footsie game at the table. Since he was single, I would visit his place after work before returning home to my husband. I didn't inform this mutual friend about our open relationship, as my husband preferred to keep it hidden. As a result, the mutual friend I was intimate with believed I was cheating on my husband, while my husband remained unaware of my affair with our mutual friend. I thought it was best for him not to discover this, as I feared it would lead to a strong reaction and insecurity on his part. I ensured the use of protection to eliminate any risk of unwanted pregnancy. After a month of our open relationship, my husband stayed true to his word and never inquired about the individuals I was involved with. There was another mutual friend I was interested in having a physical relationship with, so I initiated contact with a flirtatious text, which eventually led to sexting. He had just started dating a girl, so we shifted our communication to a more discreet messaging app called Snapchat. Eventually, we met up and engaged in physical activity multiple times. A few months into our open marriage, I was having intimate encounters with 3 different men and felt more satisfied than ever before in my marriage. 2 of them were our mutual friends, and the other was someone I met online. However, things took a turn after attending a party where both of the mutual friends I was involved with were present. Out of the blue, my husband asked me if I was being intimate with the single friend. I didn't see a reason to lie, so I admitted to it and said yes. He was hurt and initially wanted to end our open relationship. After he had a chance to cool down, we had a rational conversation about it, and I promised to end the relationship with the mutual friend. It turned out that my husband had noticed the way we looked at each other and sensed something was going on. He even had me send a breakup text in his presence to end things with the friend he was aware of. I not only ended the relationship with the friend he knew about, but also with the other mutual friend he wasn't aware of, as I could see how much it hurt my husband. However, my husband was only involved with one woman, whom I had introduced him to, and I began to worry because he was starting to develop an emotional attachment to her. My concern escalated because he was dedicating more and more time to her. They were exchanging text messages regularly, going for walks in the park, or attending family events she invited him to. I confronted him about it, expressing my worry that he was forming an emotional bond with her, while our open relationship was initially meant to be purely physical. I can still vividly recall that moment, the night my husband revealed shocking news that would shatter our world. We lay in bed, the dim light casting shadows on our faces, as he uttered words that would haunt me forever. He disclosed that the woman he had been involved with during our open relationship was pregnant, and she intended to keep the baby. Shock surged through me, leaving me stunned as I struggled to grasp the gravity of his revelation. How had this happened? We had always agreed that our encounters would remain physical, with no emotional attachments. We were supposed to use protection to ensure our encounters remained solely physical and didn't endanger our relationship. But now, reality shattered my illusion of control. Our established rules had been broken, and I felt an intense sense of betrayal. This was never part of our plan. Panic and anger surged within me, creating a complex mix of emotions. How could he jeopardize our relationship in such a profound way? With a heavy heart and a quivering voice filled with pain, I gave him an ultimatum. I asked him to request that she terminate the pregnancy, hoping to salvage the remains of our falling relationship. It was a desperate plea, driven by the fear of losing the love and life we had built together. I wished that he would comprehend the seriousness of the situation and prioritize our bond over this unexpected twist of fate. But, to my dismay, my husband made his decision. He opted for her over me, over our relationship. At that instant, it felt like my world was crumbling around me. The man I deeply loved, the person I trusted above all else, had made a choice that shattered my heart into countless irreparable fragments. He had opted for a life with her, leaving me feeling discarded and deserted. To make matters worse, he appeared untroubled by the anguish I was experiencing. It seemed as though our shared memories and the love we once shared had become distant memories for him. I began to question whether his love for me had ever been genuine, or if it had all been a mere illusion. Amidst the devastation, I recognized that I couldn't remain in a relationship where my feelings were no longer valued. The pain of witnessing him move in with her and witnessing their budding relationship thrive while mine crumbled was unbearable. I needed to summon the strength to walk away and discover my own path forward. The process of ending our marriage was lengthy and filled with agony. It put my resilience to the test at every turn. As time went on, I continued to explore my sexuality, engaging with multiple partners much like I did during our open relationship. However, now it felt hollow, lacking the love and connection we had once shared. These intimate encounters couldn't fill the void left by my broken heart. Deep down, I yearned for the love we had lost. I missed the laughter, our shared dreams, and the sense of security I felt in his embrace. But painful as it was, I understood that our love had been tarnished, irreparably harmed by the choices we had made. Do I regret suggesting an open relationship to my husband? I'm unsure. Perhaps the right course of action was to divorce him, because he couldn't fulfill my physical desires or my need to explore my sexuality. But in the end, we found ourselves in the same place. I divorced my ex-wife more than 5 years ago because she repeatedly cheated on me with over 13 different men and 2 women. To give you some context, my ex and I used to participate in swinging activities until the last year of our marriage. However, things had taken a turn for the worse, and I decided to stop swapping partners. Unfortunately, she disagreed with me and continued to have physical encounters with other men without my knowledge. 6 months before our divorce, my oldest child received a life-threatening illness diagnosis. I won't go into specifics to protect my privacy. As the pressure mounted, she began to struggle and started drinking heavily, putting herself and our children at risk. The situation deteriorated to the point where I had to move out of the house for a few weeks and took our kids with me. During this period, her best friend, whom we'll call Amy, approached me. My ex had recently confided in her during a girls' night out, revealing all her wrongdoings. She disclosed that she had been sleeping with a different guy every single night and getting drunk while having the kids with her. Shockingly, she also admitted to leaving our 3-year-old and 4-year-old kids alone at home one night a month ago while they were asleep so she could meet a guy. Amy informed me that my ex planned to file for divorce after extracting more money from me, all while living rent-free in my home. Both Amy and I were appalled and realized that we needed to put an end to this situation. My ex despised living under the same roof as me because she genuinely loathed me and preferred spending time with her admirers. We needed a plan to get her out of the house and document her reckless behavior to limit her custody of the children. Step 1. I moved back into the house and sat down right next to her. She freaked out, demanding that I leave the house immediately and threatening to call the police if I didn't comply. Unbeknownst to her, I was secretly recording the audio of our conversation. I told her to go away and she called the cops to report me for domestic issues. The police arrived quickly and handcuffed me before I knew it. The detective approached the squad car to speak with me, and I let him listen to the recording. As he listened, his anger towards my wife grew. Before long, our roles were reversed, and she found herself in handcuffs. They placed her in the squad car, and she spent the night in jail. She stayed with Amy for the following week since she wasn't allowed back in our house. I obtained a restraining order. During this time, she went on a significant spending spree, buying a new laptop, a new iPhone at full price, and a whole new wardrobe. She emptied our bank account and started using my savings. Amy also confirmed that she was heavily drinking at her place, to the point of vomiting and soiling herself in her bathroom. Amy recorded her drunken episode on video for future reference and shared with me a 20-minute video that portrayed a woman completely out of control due to alcohol. The next day, I withdrew all our money from the savings account and deposited it into my new bank account to ensure I had funds to cover the bills. I closed that account to prevent her from using overdraft protection and leaving me responsible for any overages. I closed all the joint credit cards and moved all my investment accounts into an account under my name only. When she found out, she completely lost it because she had no more money to spend recklessly. She confided in Amy, saying she was thinking about hurting herself because things had become so unbearable. Despite my feelings towards my ex, I didn't want her to harm herself in any way. Amy convinced her that she needed professional help and accompanied her to check into an inpatient mental hospital. This turned out to be beneficial as she received the necessary assistance, but it also indicated that she posed a risk to herself and the kids. It was time to execute the final part of our plan and make it official. I consulted with my attorney to initiate the divorce proceedings and complete the required paperwork. My attorney was shocked by my ex's actions and fully supported me in pursuing primary custody. He filed my divorce decree and also obtained a temporary restraining order from the judge until our initial hearing. We delivered the divorce papers to her while she was still in the hospital and scheduled the initial hearing for 2 weeks later.